Good afternoon. Lovely to be here. Today I will talk with you or share with you some myths in revenue management and hopefully give you a new perspective. I can see some industry colleagues here who I probably won't be telling anything new, but I see also a lot of hoteliers and people interested in the topic of revenue management. And yeah, let's jump into it. Just a small, brief introduction. My name is Florian Augustin. I am the Chief Commercial Officer of Hotel Partner Revenue Management. I've spent the last 12 years before I went to Hotel Partner in the operational hotels around the world, mostly in the luxury segment, very commercially in different commercial functions. And then since a couple of years, I have been part of the Hotel Partner family, where it is our mission to actively assist our partners in a sustainable growth in terms of increasing their profitability and partnering with them on a long-term basis to increase their future or to guide them into a successful future. We are a revenue management company. We service around 500 hotels in Europe. We ensure our vision through three core pillars of our services. So we provide team, the expertise, and the technology to execute our strategies. And depending on the type of hotels and the type of needs, we can modulate these packages. So let's now jump straight away into the myths and the misconceptions about revenue management. The first couple ones are quite low-hanging fruits. I think almost all of you are aware that that's not how it works nowadays. But it's important to, tackle that subject because I strongly believe that there's an argument that actually increasing demand can also be done by increasing prices. So often the last minute options, if you don't have enough business on the books, is to decrease your prices because it automatically leads to some certain demand in your property. But in many cases, obviously, you didn't have the strategy in place to be successful on this date. There's so many factors that actually influence your positioning and the pricing and the demand. And you will see the word demand many times today because understanding demand and forecasting your demand is actually vital to understand how your hotel fills. Over many, many years, the standard practice has been to focus on forecasting occupancy. Well, we have gone away from this for quite some time because occupancy is a variable that we can easily influence because we can always make a hotel full. It's just a question of with what type of price and how can we anticipate demand. So, and in also many instances, you need to understand that demand also goes with pricing. Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm done with this one anyhow. And raising prices, for example, understanding in downtown London, in Mayfair, that a suite must maybe be much more expensive than other room categories because the person has a different price sensitivity and a price elasticity in this market. You need to understand that, for example, in downtown London, someone wants to pay 1,500, 2,000 pounds per night for a suite because it's kind of a status symbol as well. If you are selling your suite maybe too cheap, that might be the reason why you're not selling your suites. So there has to be an understanding of price elasticity and obviously understanding how your customer segments acts, and then in the next step you need to optimize that demand. So understanding what strategies can I do, what type of demand, when do I deny low rate requests, corporate rates, group rates, when do I accept them, when do I optimize my business mix. And then we go into the controlling part where we set certain restrictions, rate levels, where we set certain minimum lengths of stays and try to really optimize the demand and get the best profitability mix out of it, which at the end of the day then leads us to an increase in revenue. Revenue management is only about changing prices. We strongly disagree. Has already been said by 1987 American Airlines, who kind of were the forerunners in dynamic pricing and yield management, that it's offering the right seat, in our case room, to the right customer at the right price, and we add now at the right channel or at the right location, because 1987 the amount of distribution channels was was very small. So revenue management is something very strategic. So you need to take a holistic approach and understand how does my hotel work in this whole mix. So at our company, we usually when we start with a new client, we take a step back and we start to question everything of how they've used to do it. Why are they naming this room category this name? Does it make sense in this specific market? So it's not just looking at pricing and the factors that influence pricing, it's looking at your distribution mix, it's understanding your different segments and how they feed into your whole business, and then obviously leveraging this to increase your profitability. It's understanding your position in the market, it's basically really understanding who are my competitors, who am I competing with. You can have to even go as granular as saying during the weekend I'm competing with someone completely different than during the week. Or in my single rooms, I'm actually in a completely different comp set than with my suites. Because I might have a product where I can actually, fish in different segments. So that's actually a very important understanding to have. And then you need to create a strategy that combines this. And then obviously content, your online exposure, how you are presenting yourself directly, how you're presenting yourselves on the channels, and then also utilizing these channels and other distribution players out there to increase visibility, to increase demand when demand is not coming naturally because of the market, but to stimulate demand in your specific hotel. And then obviously understanding reviews and how your perception of the market is or the market is perceiving you as a hotel. So it's a very strategic approach, and then from this strategy derives the decision in daily price changes or not. But first of all, the strategy needs to work. And it's also something you don't set in stone, where we come basically to the next topic is that what we encounter a lot of times, especially in the independent hotel sector, is buying a software which makes certain pricing decision or gives you certain pricing entry points, and then kind of putting in some rules and some barriers to make it not, do completely stuff which you can't control, and then letting it be, and then going after 6 months, 9 months at most, and then consolidating and rethinking. You need to build the strategy, but the strategy needs to be constantly adapted. And I think we've all experienced the last couple of years, the change in all the KPIs that are relevant for making our decisions in terms of average length of stay, in terms of the booking corridor, the booking window, the last minute bookings. So if you don't constantly adapt the strategy and then implement it in the technology and in the people who drive the strategy, you will not be successful. So just relying on some system and then putting in some parameters will not bring the results that are possible to get out. It will definitely bring you an improvement to how you worked before if you worked with very static pricing or very seasonal pricing, but it is definitely not a one-time task. And especially if you have unexpected demand. So what is unexpected demand? Anomalies. I think as a hotelier, you all experience it all the time. You're getting full on a Sunday when there's no reason why you're suddenly getting full on a Sunday. You're noticing the demand for a weekday where you usually don't have that type of demand. And when you notice it, you're already too late. If you notice it from your gut and your experience, then there has been weeks before where the underlying data was already building up and giving us these hints that this anomaly or this unexpected peak is building up. So I brought you two examples. I think the left one, last minute concert in Amsterdam announced by Madonna, is a classic unexpected demand peak. The right one is actually a real life example. We have a nice portfolio in the UK, and when King Charles announced that he's finally getting his crown after waiting for such a long time, there was an unexpected wave of demand coming into the city and into certain areas. And this unexpected wave in demand didn't happen on Monday at 11 a.m. while everybody was, sitting around thinking, okay, what is happening? It came in the evening on a Monday, and it immediately led to a lot of rooms being booked in this destination and a lot of missed opportunities. And you need technology underlying to safeguard your business as well. You need a smart or a technology which you can tell to react in certain scenarios. In our case, our system has different escalation possibilities, but there was so much demand that the system closed out and said, I need a person to make a strategic decision. And that's the point where that person then can really come in the morning on the next day, on Tuesday, and be like, awesome, I still have 70, 80, depending on of my inventory left for this day. How can I now make it the most profitable day for that period? And then in our case, we went and said, okay, we're putting in a minimum length of stay of 3 nights. We're only selling non-refundable now. And obviously, the closer we get to the date of arrival, the more flexible we can get if we want to. And you can strategically hold on to rooms because there will always be this last-minute person who is willing to pay whatever it takes to be part of this thing. So if you are able to offer in this last-minute window, then you will make very, very valuable bookings. And obviously, doing this on a consistent basis, 365 days a year, don't have to tell you that it has a very positive impact on your top-line revenue. The next thing, obviously, being in sales a lot is what does it cost? It's expensive. Well, the only thing I always answer is, what does it cost you to not to do it? Nowadays, we are getting in a very, very competitive environment. I think we can all agree that the way we used to forecast and the way we used to benchmark and the way we used to derive our decisions based on historical data a lot is not the way how it's being done now. There's this topic of future demand and understanding how future demand is aggregated. That is the vital role in our opinion. And I will tell you a bit more about AI and things like that in a couple of slides. But still in 2019, 95%, according to an Expedia study, of all hotels worldwide have not been utilizing technology in the revenue management department. So there's still such a huge amount of hotels who are putting the finger in the air, who are looking at their in-house occupancy and then making slight adjustments on a channel manager basis, and then kind of running blind and on the success of the growing economy. But we can see a huge shift in the last couple of years. We've seen almost double the number of revenue management systems or pricing systems. I always want to differentiate because I think that's two different things. In the last 3 years alone, we've doubled the number of these technologies out there. That means that there's much more offerings out there, which will definitely lead to a much more commercial approach in our markets, and there will be more competition. So you need to find out for yourself what makes me stand out from the ones right, left, or the ones I'm competing with. And it's not always necessarily the technology, it's how the technology is being used and how it's leveraged and the benefit it brings to you as a hotel. And in terms of, especially as an independent hotelier, we are always in a very risky situation. If we have a very good person in this part, in the terms of revenue management, commercial mindset, then you want to keep this person on site in your hotel because he or she brings so much added value to your operations. But if you're not able to develop this person because you're an independent hotel, you have 60 to 100 rooms, there's not so much openings where you can develop this person too. I believe strongly that a GM or an owner needs to become creative and see how can I hold talent? How can I keep talent engaged? And therefore, companies like us or technologies are actually delivering not a service where we're replacing someone, but where we're actually taking away a lot of work, and there's a lot of nitty-gritty work, work which is not necessarily very know-how relevant to be successful, which you can take away. You can substitute with technology and outsourcing companies, and you can then give that person another perspective to maybe grow into a more senior role, to become maybe an assistant to the GM or something in that sense, and you can give that person perspective and you can keep him on board or her. Instead of that, maybe after a couple of years, that person goes to the next best job opening or to find a challenge in a career somewhere else. So there's also that risk management perspective that I always try to bring into the picture, and if you talk about costs or not costs. So yeah, very simple. This is actually, if you take a hotel with 2 million rooms revenue, which has only done instinctive pricing or only very fixed pricing, we can see about 20% impact in the first year alone on the top line revenue with professional revenue management. Obviously, this varies very much, but happy to talk later about more case studies if that's what you're interested in. Let's go into the topic of artificial intelligence. I think that's something that's being used a lot. It's a big buzzword at the moment. It's great. We've been using parts of our AI for more than 6 years in our company. But the question, and I think something that we're all consistently confronted with, is are we being replaced and outperformed already, or is it in the near future? I say no, not everything. And I actually will ask a machine to answer this question, and I think you know where I'm going. Um, I hope you can all read it. So the machine says no, I say no. We all know that ChatGPT is a result of the things that we have put out there, and therefore, it can't make its decision and answers on its own. And that's where I'm going towards. Is we need the topic of AI to help us so much at the moment, and it's very important, especially in this competitive environment. But we are still not there that we can really say a autopilot or an algorithm-driven system can make every decision. We're at a point where we say 80 to 85%, but those cherries on the top, those real smart decisions, those things where maybe no one has thought of, they're still driven by humans. But one day, that's kind of where I'm heading to, is that one day the amount of qualitative data will be available to actually outperform a human. And there's different things where we're also very much developing and doing, spending some research and development on, and our machine learning models that we're using, they are being used to make pricing decisions to help us aggregate data. And then you can see it like a flow. So the machine learning part brings out data, brings recommendations, then it's qualitatively accepted by a human and controlled, it's overwritten, and it's maximized to performance. And all of these decisions that then are the machine and the human, they're all collected. So those are all data points that we then can take again and feed again into the machine. And the more we feed it, the more qualitative the data gets. And at some point, this data is being utilized to work on deep learning models where then we can push a button and say, this hotel with these parameters in this destination, build me the revenue strategy. And then we go back to the slide where I look at those 4 big components, and then that strategy is being built, which is now being done manually and with know-how and with data. And then that strategy is built by an AI, which will be more accessible and more effective than the strategy that we would have built. And then the fun begins as well, because then decisions are being also given away to an AI, where you might be surprised because a human wouldn't make that decision. But isn't that kind of the point where we're going? If you remember the chess game from Google in China, where the world master in chess was beat by the machine because the machine did a move that no one has done in 120 years. So that's kind of where we want to go. If we just can do it like we did it, then why do we need it? So that's where we are. But we are still very, very far away from really having that component in revenue management, especially this holistic approach. On pricing recommendations up and down, it's getting a lot better in that sense. So where will we go from here? I kind of said it in my closing statement. AI is here to stay. AI is the big revolution of the 21st century. I think we can all agree on that. But it will, at this point, still be very complementary. It has to be used in all types of data aggregation scenarios. So if you're ever making a decision with a company that does data, ask them, are you using machine learning? How are you using it? And what does it bring to you? And if you're ever buying from a company that is very much using the word AI as a marketing catch and is trying to convince you, dig deeper in these questions. Be very penetrant on how good is that data? Where is that data coming from? Because all of these things will give you an indicator of how far along are they. And we constantly look at the market and at different players, and we can really say that no one is there where a lot of people might perceive AI as really making smart decisions. So it's still very much the human and the machine combination that really brings the best results out there. So that was my small impulse about some revenue management myths. Obviously, this is a very, very broad topic where we can talk a lot about different things, but you can see that we have some know-how in most of these areas. We have a stand right here. I'll be around today and tomorrow if you have any follow-up questions or want to delve deeper into the topic. Otherwise, happy to take some questions now if there's something you would like me to address. We have a couple minutes left. Otherwise, thank you for joining me today.